Hey everybody, this week from the Distortion Den, our good buddy Deke is back, and we're going to continue our Queensryche series. We're on the third album, second full length. This one is Rage for Order. We're going to talk the music, we're going to talk the album cover, we're going to talk vampires and perms, just who knows what else. So get ready, let's do it. Hey everybody, it's a snowman with TooLoud2oMusic.com. Welcome back to the collection. And as you can see, which side are you on? Deke is back with us from the Distortion Den. Hey Deke, how's it going?
Going good there, Mr. Snow. Looking forward to rewinding back to 1986 with
Hey.
Queensryche Rage For Order.
Yes, this is the next topic. We've been through the EP, we've
Mhm.
been through the warning, and now we're on to their second full-length album, Rage for Order. Um, Yeah, came out what, June 27th, 1986. So I was in between my junior and senior year, but I didn't hear this album until later. So did you get into this album when it came out?
Yeah, I bought it basically that year, um, on originally on cassette tape for the trusty old Walkman. Probably because it was probably cheaper on cassette tape than vinyl.
Oh,
And
I'm
that,
sure.
and that was probably the go to. And plus, 1986. We're looking at Iron Maiden with Somewhere in Time, Van Halen with 5150, David Lee Roth with Eat 'em and Smile, AC/DC with Who Made Who soundtrack, Bon Jovi with Slippery When Wet, Judas
Yeah.
Priest with Turbo, Metallica with Master of Puppets, Rat with Dancing Undercover,
This
Boston with Third Stage, and another killer debut, and that would be Tesla with Mechanical Resonance. It's
Presence.
like so much music. So, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that you bought it though, that was pretty good. For me though, I hadn't really heard of them at that point. I
Mhm.
was more into the Rat and Tesla and
Mhm.
those kind of the glam metal, and we'll get into a little bit about that with Queensryche. But so for me, it wasn't until, like I said before on the other shows, it was after Operation Mindcrime when I saw him on tour with Def Leppard. And then the first one I bought after Mindcrime was Rage for Order. um and wow, yeah, that was, as much as I loved Operation Mindcrime, then to come back and see this one before it, it was just a fantastic album, which I don't want to give it all away and say that I liked it, but I liked it. And because it was different than the other music at the time. Like, listening to Rat and Bon Jovi, it's sex, drugs, rock and roll and stuff. These guys are not that. Yeah, there's some drugs on here talking about, but it's more thinking man music. It's more about what communication and not internet at this point, but it was technology was a big piece of this album. So it really made you think, and it wasn't your typical let's party, David Lee Roth flying on a surfboard across the sky. This was nothing like that. And as you can tell from the back cover, we have to talk about this because I mean,
We do have to talk about this.
this this is a better shot of them together in their long black leather trench coats. Uh, Four guys with perms, and with Jeff Tate kind of with a flock of seagulls metal hairstyle. Uh, what did you think about that? I mean, what are they, goth vampires, or what are they trying to do with that?
We're talking about yeah, it's almost like Tate on that back cover. It looks like, does look like a vampire now that
He
you think.
does, yeah.
Now I'll never unsee that. But you know what? 86, and here's what I was talking to you before we started rolling tape here, or stream as we call it, about a prop. Another album that came out roughly around the same time, which had a really crazy album cover as well. These guys.
Oh, yes.
Look at that.
Underlocking key.
I mean, they basically went shopping with the Reich.
Reich went all leather though.
Yeah. And Dawkins had that cheap ass prop on the cut as in a key for
Underlocking key. Yeah.
the Dawkins.
So yeah.
Love it.
Well, you know, that's the one thing about the bands back then. When they found there was a designer or anything that did one band, all the other bands wanted to copy. If that band was successful, they wanted that person to do their clothes, and that's why eventually everybody looked alike.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't even thinking about Doc and how they looked and that one.
Oh, I did.
But yeah, that's just yeah, and the perm things I think is what really blows my mind is they all have perms, and that just is not very metal to me.
Oh, metal poodles.
Yeah, metal poodles. I like that. Poodle heads.
But you
So
know, John, you're like, see, your intro to Queensryche is different than mine. See, I basically bought the Warning the same year it came out. So when I knew the new Queensryche was coming, it was kind of a no brainer buy to a certain extent.
right.
Like a lot of those other bands, like we talked about this before, where sometimes an album would get lost by me because there was so much music coming out. Like just that list I read off to you. I mean, there was over Queensryche, there was like Maiden, for instance, Summer in Time. That was like the
Yeah.
A list, right?
Right.
And and stuff you just couldn't devote all that time to it. So
I mean,
I think
could
my thoughts to Rage for Order may be a little different than yours.
oh, okay.
But I'm not saying
Yeah.
yet.
But yeah, I mean, back then, I was working at a grocery store, so I wasn't making a ton of money. So it was like you had to pick what you could buy. Being in high school, I didn't really have a full-time job. So
Yeah.
for me, it was Rat, Bon Jovi. I got the Tesla and a few others that you had even mentioned. This is just not one I did at the time. It was probably was when I was in college, and I still didn't have money, but I ended up going back and getting
Well,
that one.
it's age and entry point into the band, right? Or artist or
Right.
whatever. It's just where we were growing up at the time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What did you think about the sound? Because it's very different from the Warning. It's more
Um,
melodic. It's got more keyboards. It's a little more industrial with that metallic keyboard sound. I don't mean that in a bad way, um, at least not from my perspective. So, what did you think about it?
well, they did definitely expand their sound from the Warning to this album. You're right. There's more synths and more keys. I just found that the drums lack a punch on this record. They sound kind of, Neil Kernon produced Rage for Order. He also produced Dock and Under Lock and Key. There's my tie-in.
Oh, wow.
The
Okay.
drums sound punchier on the Dokken record,
Then they
and
did.
that's probably due to budget,
Right.
right? Dokken was already a gold-selling act. They were soon to hit platinum with Under Lock and Key. Queensryche were still trying to find their footing. Plus, I think it was the Warning went way over budget, right? I
Right.
think
Right.
so. Who knows? And maybe they couldn't. They just didn't have the budget to get the drums more. Like they had to just do everything on probably a time management as well. So
Right.
I just find that the drum sound on here could have been so much better, especially when you have a guy like Scott Rockenfeld drumming.
Yeah. Because there are some songs on here where the drums are really prominent and he's really pounding it. But you're right. It's not as, doesn't have that oomph. It's just a
Yeah.
little more, a little crispier and trying to think of what to say on that one. But yeah, it doesn't have that punch. But there are some songs on here that he does a really great job
Mm-hmm.
with the drumming. Um, so yeah, there was God, what was that one? There was one thing I was trying to remember on that. Not really as that, but I did like the production fact for the songs and how they bled together. They made it almost a very cohesive sounding album, even though the production, like you said, is not as good as say the Dokken one. There was a unique tone that was throughout. All the songs sounded like they belonged on the same album. And I can't say that for their prior album. I think this one was more consistent, songwriting and musically and everything. Um, it's like they had actually found what they were wanting to do. You know, the EP and the debut, they're still trying to discover what their sound is and who they are. I think they found that with this album, because there are so many sounds in this album that I hear in the next couple albums that's more consistent. I don't hear much from the debut. I hear
Mhm.
more of what some of the songs on here. I can hear the songs in the other album. I'm like, oh, they got that from this song. They got that from this song. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think they did a really good job with the sonics of the whole thing. It's just there is a little metallic thing on the drums, and then the keyboards are a little sharper and a little more sticking you with a knife with the way they punch at you. So, but that's just the way I look at it. So,
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
all right. Well, let's walk through the song. Well, first before we do that, the album did go gold,
Mhm.
but it did not probably go gold until after Mindcrime and after Empire came out, and people went and bought it afterwards. Because I don't think it did that great on the charts. Um, I was trying to remember, I pull it up where I had it. Chart wise, it only made it to number 47. So they didn't sell a ton of albums when it came out. And I think when it get going gold probably happened years later after the others sold. So yeah, even though I might really like this album now, it wasn't that noticed from the buying public at the time. So all
You
right.
know, I can even count on my hand how many friends of mine listen to Queensryche. I mean, Tebow never bought into Queensryche anything.
Yeah.
Like he would hear it at my house, but he would not go out and physically buy a copy. I mean, he was more interested in the listening to an album like Y&T Down for the Count,
Right.
stuff like that. Like he just had zero interest. I don't know what. I mean, it's just. I guess it's like being a Rush fan. You're in or you're out.
You're out. Yeah.
So same thing with Reich. You're either in or you're out.
You're out.
But they did cross over with a few albums later, which we'll get to at some
Which we'll
point.
get to.
Yeah.
Opening track, Walk in the Shadows. What'd you think?
It's a good opening number. I mean, it's basically Queensryche straight up rock track, real good catchy chorus, and Jeff Tate is off to the races with his vocals. It's like it's a good opener. It pulls you in as a listener.
It does. And it is a little more of the glam, more of the modern rock at the time. This song was a little more melodic and maybe less heavy metal. Because it just had that catchy chorus and that hook in there. But Tate's vocals, on the Warning, he was really singing. Sometimes I think he was over singing. This one, he was spot on this whole album. And hearing him on that first song, it really excited me and kind of grabbed hold, and I was ready. I was off to the races at that time. Yeah. So, and then we get to more technical, I don't know, technology and stuff where they start to, they're really more progressive in what they're doing. And the next track is I Dream in Infrared. Um, Strange title for if you're back in that day, you're like, what? Uh, but this is where I'm just like, they're not a party band by any means whatsoever. They make
No,
you think.
yeah.
What what did you like about this one or not like about this one?
Um, I would almost put it as one of the top tracks that I like on the record.
Yeah.
It's mid-tempo pace. More picking of the guitar strings. They're just not power chord and heavy metal riffs. I mean, that's the big difference of each Queensryche album. You go back to the EP, and they're just, Queen of the Reich. There's no
Yeah.
Queen of the Reich, and see, that's where I hear them different than how you hear them. because when I bought the Warning, I was looking for Queen of the Reich, and it wasn't really on there.
Right.
And then when I got Rage for Order, this one, they're nowhere near Queen of the Reich. You know, they just kept progressing, and that's where I think they would sometimes lose me as a listener back then.
Yeah.
Was I was looking for a bit of that sound, but overall, this track, yeah, it's a good one, man. It's a cooker.
Oh, it is. There's just an awesome groove to it. I do like they did add more keyboards in these songs. And in this one, it was used very well to give it that technological feel. I don't know. It's just it's really it was just a great song. What is it about a computer dreaming or it's just a weird song lyrically and stuff, but musically it catches you. And Jeff Tate's vocals, man, they're kind of haunting on this one.
Yeah.
I do like that fact about it. Uh, then we're gonna get to one of my other favorite. This is one of my favorites. There's a lot of favorite songs I have on this one, and The Whisper is one of them. What'd you think about that one?
For me, hearing it now, it's like it's got a total Iron Maiden like vibe to it. And you know, I hear it in the guitars of Chris DeGarmo and Michael Wilt.
Yeah,
They're doing the dual solos and you know and whatnot, and it's got that Maiden vibe. So you know, for that, yeah, I would give the Whisper a pass.
yeah, yeah. That was when I wrote a review on this a couple of years ago. The opening line on this particular song, I was like, I said the next song easily makes me think Maiden with that opening riff, and it is. It's just it's got that Maiden sound to it. Um, and again, I think I even mentioned the DeGarmo and Wilton, their guitar harmonies together and stuff, and it was just this killer track. I do love the fact when they're in the chorus, um, there is a whispering of some of the lyrics in the background as he's singing to add that extra oomph because it is called the whisper. So it's a
Yeah,
nice little thing they did to it that I think adds to the song as well. So
he's whispering.
he is, he is. You know, if you're going to use certain things in a song title that makes you think it either needs to be slow or it needs to be fast, you need to hold up to it.
Yeah,
And they did with that one. So, all right. The next song was, I think, the first single, but it's a cover song. And it's a cover by the young lady's name is Dalbello. She was from Canada.
mhm.
She was kind of a pop singer turned into an alternative singer or whatever, kind of like Alanis Morissette, I guess. But this was a cover. And so I was really surprised to find out years later that Gonna Get Close to You was not an original track. And that was a strange one for me to be the first single. But I mean, what a song. They really made it their own. What did you remember hearing that one when it came out?
Yeah, I remember hearing it, and it's basically you know, the lyrics. It's like creeper lyrics.
Oh,
It's
it makes
basically.
every breath you take seem like a children's lullaby.
I was just gonna go there with Stinger, but you beat me to it, man.
Yeah.
But you know that the interesting thing about Lisa DeBello is everybody when you're done watching this episode, Google her name and you'll see her album covers. And she has an album cover from 1984 that somebody famous that I mentioned in my list of 86 albums kind of nicked cover, the idea of the cover for it. So I see Johnny's taking a
I'm
look at it.
doing that right now. Oh, yeah.
You see what I mean?
Uh, the one with the painting on the face.
Who does that remind you of?
Oh, David Lee Roth. Yeah.
Even smile, baby. So, you know, back to this song. Sorry to go off the
No,
rail.
that's fine.
Um, you know, I find this song okay. Um, I just I like it when the pace picks up in the pre-chorus,
Right.
but I just find that chorus just a little too meandering. I just find there's better songs on this album than Gonna Get Close to You. And I just found it weird that they would go with this one as the
Yeah.
debut single. You think they'd want to go with something a little more punchier, like Walk in the Shadows, like
Yeah.
the
I know
old.
that one to me was more radio friendly. Now maybe because it was closer to being a ballad
Hmm.
type song. That's why they wanted to go that route, because ballads in the 80s, ballads sell.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this song is so eerie and so creepy that I really love it.
No,
I
there you
like
go.
a darkness to a song.
Hmm.
I know my shrink says I need help, I'm sure, but I do like a darkness to it.
Yeah.
And they really bring that in this one. That's what, like I said, it's about stalking, and it is creepier than the police version of their song. But I do like this one. So then we get to the killing words.
Mhm.
For me, I'll start this one. You know, there's some good moments in it. The chorus picks up and the chorus is a little catchy, but the verses for me were a little kind of dull. Um,
Mhm.
so I wasn't really into that. On Tate's vocals, they did a lot of layering. When you got to the chorus, it sounds like this big chorus, but it's just Tate like layered over every little bit. So it's a good. Now I'll go ahead and say on there's no song on here I skipped. There's just a couple I'm not as enthusiastic about as others, and Killing Words is one of them.
Mhm.
What's your take on it?
I agree with you. It's it's got a good power chorus to it, like a power. I don't want to say ballad, but to me, it almost could have slid on a Dawkins album.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
which it's got like a Dawkins like vibe to it. So, yeah, you know what? It's an okay track. I like. Yeah, it's
it's okay.
fine.
Yeah. Well, the next one though, Surgical Strike. This is one of those titles that to me, if it says something about Surgical Strike, it needs to have punch to it. It needs to be rambunctious and stuff. And it is. And this is one of those where I think, even though Rockenfell's drum sounds not perfect, he is all over this song. I mean, just pounding away.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like about this one. If you're going to have something with that title, it needs to have a punch. It needs to like cut you and hit you. And with him, with Scott on the drums, he really, I think, shines on this particular song for me. So,
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. It's all about the title, Surgical Strike.
yeah,
It's going to punch you in the head, and that's what this song does. It gives you a good swift boot to the head. I mean, it's a metal like vibe right through, and you're right. Rockenfield's drums and Jackson's bass, they
oh,
just rumble the
yeah,
song like right through. And yeah, you know what? It's another I would consider one of the better tracks on this record.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
when
it's
they
a great way to,
four
sorry.
on the floor, when they put the four on the floor and go for it,
Yeah,
I like that kind of Reich metal, and
yeah.
that's this track.
And since we're actually talking the vinyl, it's a perfect song to end side one with, because when it's done, you're ready to flip that sucker over
Yep.
and see hear what's to come. Which the next song is I don't know, I'm gonna probably butcher how this is supposed to be pronounced, but New Regal, which for German is New Reign or New Rule. Um, so what'd you think about it?
Um, for me as a listener, maybe back then it probably would have went over my head, but now hearing it again in 2024 and kind of having to listen to it a little more closely, it's probably for me on this record the most interesting track. They got a mixed bag of synthesizers, keyboards, guitars, the vocals, everything. It's like they threw it all in the blender and came
That's
this tune. So it's a different spin, but it's a good track.
yeah, this is what I said on it, which is why I laughed when you said you just threw everything in it. I was like, it's filled with keyboards, guitars, both electric, acoustic, drums, bass, and everything but the kitchen sink. I mean, they do throw everything in on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're right. For that respect, it's pretty interesting. Uh, it's an interesting listen. It wasn't one of my favorite songs, but I get what you're coming. There's just so much going on in there. I think you probably hear something a little different almost every time you listen to it. So
True. It's probably more of a headphone song too, which I didn't listen to on headphones, but you could probably really pick up on some other things that are going on in the Sonics as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Next one is Chemical Youth. We Are Rebellion. All right. Rebellion. What if you have that kind of word in the title? Should the song rock? I hope so. What do you think?
Yeah, it does rock. I mean, listen to the big gang vocals in the chorus. We are rebellion.
Yeah.
We're coming to take over. Ah, the gang. The big gang vocals of 1986.
Yeah.
Which everybody was kind of following each other's lead on, and you know, it's another straight ahead. Excuse me, another straight ahead metal tune. You know, uh, and that's the thing I kind of like about this record is how they sequenced it.
Yeah.
You go like the opening track, straight ahead rocker, then they go mid tempo, and they kind of like they shift the gears. They go ballad followed by surgical strike, followed by new
New Reggae,
regal, new
which is
regime, and then they go back to the metal. Like they keep you engaged as a listener instead of saying, "Oh God, these 4 songs in a row were all ballads."
right.
Like,
Which they don't generally do ballads. So they
no,
had some softer songs on here, which is a nice change, but they really weren't ballads. They don't do love songs.
no,
um, and this song, Chemical Youth Rebellion one, you know, sadly, most of these songs, honestly, could apply today.
yeah,
I mean, if you're listening, there's a lot of AI talk, there's a lot of robotics and yeah, kind of stuff we're talking about now. And so it's just, I find it interesting that the albums that they do, the lyrically are still relatable now. Because there's another album we're going to talk about that I think is just as relatable now as it was back then. But that's for another time. All right. Then we get to another track I really, really love on here. It's called London. Um, do you like this one?
mm, I think there's better on this record. To be totally honest with you, Johnny,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It didn't really, it's like they build up the chemical youth adrenaline, and then they
Uh-huh.
kind of shift the gear to London. I don't know, just for some reason, this track, it's it's like I said, it's okay, but there's better on here
Yeah.
for me
I
as a
That's fine. You you can't always be right.
I'm never right, man. People are saying, "Who's that dork with you?"
I do like London. I like there's a deep bass sound on it. Um, Tate's vocals, he's got this woeful sorrowness to it on some of the verses and stuff. And I don't know, just something about that chant of London. I'm not gonna do it. London, the way they chant. I don't know, something about it I like and I got behind and I enjoyed this one. Uh, yeah, I just think it's got a lot to offer, uh, melodically as well as what instrumentally is what they're doing and stuff. So I did like that one. Um, but I also really like the next one, Screaming in Digital. And I love the way it flows from London into this next one. Um, it's like there's no gap, there's no space. It's just
No,
it bleeds straight into it. And I like the way they do that. What do you think about Screaming in Digital?
that's a good track. I mean, it's got like a bizarro opening. It's
Hmm.
like it almost reminds me of NM 156 from The Warning, kind of that trippy
Yeah.
opening, and but Tate's vocals totally take a hold
Huh.
of this too. Musically, it's all there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good way to go towards the end of the album.
Right.
Like an album rock track. So yeah, I
Oh,
like it. It's good.
yeah. To me, it's got some great double kick drum.
Hmm.
Um, and then just something about the keyboards in it I really, really liked. That metallic sound that they had. Uh, I don't know. It's just again, just a rock and track, uh, but a little different than anything else that was out at the time. That metallic sound. You know, I say industrial rock because industrial rock, I don't know if it was really a thing then, but
No, never
this,
heard of that. No.
um, it's kind of like, bands that have this real metallic sound to them that came like I want to say later on. They were kind of, to me, they had that back in 86 and even
Mhm.
earlier than that. So I did like that one. But then they end the song on a very interesting one. I will remember. Did you like the way they ended it?
Yeah, man, there's more whistling in it.
Yes, yes. We
It's
talked
like
about that on the last one. Yes,
it's all about the whistling,
it
man.
is.
You
If he
know,
whistles in every song, this is a 5 out of 5.
so
Uh,
you know what? It's not a bad piece of music. I mean, we're joking about the whistling,
yeah, we
but
are.
but you know, it's got good use of the acoustic guitars in it, and it's a good album closer. So yeah, you know, when I went back and I heard this, I was like, holy, I don't even remember the whistling when I first heard it
Yeah,
back in so many years ago. And you know, we went off on a tangent about the whistling on Lady Wore Black,
right.
and there he is again,
I
whistling.
know, and I started laughing because I haven't picked this up in a little while. It's been a year or two since I've listened to it, but because of our conversation, when I got to that, when I heard the whistling, I just laughed. I was like, "That's
So did
awesome."
I.
We'll have to talk about that. So, but I did like this song. I like there's a little silent lucidity.
Mhm.
I shouldn't say feel to it because this one came first, but you can hear in silent lucidity, you can hear this song in its early thing. But one thing I found extremely interesting about this song, the song is the very last song on the album, and it's called I Will Remember. The very first song on Operation Mindcrime is I Remember Now.
Ooh, look at you.
So I'm like, are these albums connected in some way? I know they're probably not, but I don't know. I was like, that is either a major coincidence or they planned that. We'll have to ask Jeff Tate if we ever get him on, or any of the band members if we ever get him on.
Yeah,
And
let's just call up Chris DeGarmo after this and
yeah,
ask.
just see what he's doing. So, but that was something it clicked on me today. I was like, wait a
Wow.
second. That's the name of the first song on the next album is I Remember Now. So there's got to be a connection somewhere, or it's just pure chance. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead. Well, before we rate, there was something I wanted to point out on the cover.
Okay.
I know it's this design right here. This is the first album that this showed up on. So this logo design here
Hmm.
is now used on all their other albums in some form or with slight changes here and there. But this is the debut of that logo, just to let everybody know. So whenever I see that, I know that's a Queensryche album.
Here we go.
So piece of just a little thing. And also the version that we have, I think, has this black insert color.
Yeah.
There is an earlier release of it that is a little, it's not as clear. You can't read the name and everything as well. It's kind of a bluish kind of color to it, and it's a little faded and stuff. So if you ever find that one that it's harder to read the name of the album and everything, grab that one. That one's a rare one to get.
And
Just
send it to Jon Snow,
yes,
post office
please.
box.
Okay, now we'll go to rating the album. What do you give it?
Well, going back, you know, I like the warning because I gave the warning a 4.
Yeah.
So to compare this one to the warning, I like the warning better. So I would give Rage for Order 3.5 to maybe 3.75.
Okay.
You know, it just loses me in some spots. I'm not a fan of "Gonna Get Close to You."
Yeah.
Creeper lyrics aside, and nothing. It just doesn't. Just the song just never did it for me back in '86. It doesn't do it
Right.
for me in 2024. A few other towards the end, they kind of lose me a little bit,
Good.
but yeah. So that's kind of where my head's at with this record. It's just I just where my head was at, basically the entry point with the warning. I was
Right.
looking for that kind of metal. So
Yeah. Yeah.
don't
Oh
hate
no,
me, everybody.
fair.
Don't hate me.
No, fair enough. On the other hand, like we had discussed earlier, I came from Operation Mindcrime backwards.
Mhm.
You came up. This was closer to an Operation Mindcrime album than it is to a Warning. So for me, I really love this album. I would have given it a 5, but I, Killing Words, is that the right one? And New Rigel are okay. But I had to at least knock off a point for that. I had to knock off a point for that. I'm sorry. The perms and everything. Yeah. So I'm giving it a 4.5 because I really, really like this album. So
Johnny,
so
you're
there you go.
hardcore.
You got two different views on it.
If
So
I was to knock off a point for their wardrobe, it'd be down to 2.5. Well, I didn't even take that into context, but it'll counterbalance because I have to say that is a killer cover.
that really is a great cover. And I even noticed today there's all these markings along the side that I've never noticed before.
Jesus,
And I
neither
don't know
have
if
I.
they're counting or there seem to be Roman numerals and all sorts of little things on it.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I think it's a fantastic cover. Thank God they didn't put the ones of them in the outfit on the front. That would have turned off a lot of people, I think. Um, it would have me for sure.
for
So,
sure. Yeah.
all right. So, well, that's it. We've got our ratings. Um, that is the third one. Next month, we'll come back and we're going to do Operation Mindcrime.
Got her.
So, anything you got going on?
No, I got absolutely nothing going on except for this series, and I kind of like it. I can just blow in once a month and babble off and split. And but everybody that's watching that knows me, hit Johnny's subscribe button. He
Oh,
just
please.
did a series this week on the White Snake box sets. It's a must watch. It's great. He keeps the shows short, and it's a great watch. So push subscribe, give him a follow his WordPress stuff. I mean, the guy's out there. So support, man. He does not get this stuff for free. It's coming out of his pocket, like us as fans and
Yeah.
collectors. So, Johnny, keep doing what you're doing. And I think tonight when this, well, it'll already be out, is you're doing Aldo Nova. So that's going to be
Yeah, that
another.
actually, as we're recording that, that'll air in 15 minutes.
Gotcha. Well, it's time to
It
cut tape
it
here.
is. It is actually time to cut. So we'll end it there. Thanks for all that. The check's in the mail, by the way. Uh, thank everybody for watching. As he said, please click subscribe, hit like, even leave a comment. We'll both answer if we see it, which I'll see it for sure. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time on the collection.